Hi, and welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Michael. Really glad you're joining us today for this exploration.
So in this deep dive, we're looking at something really interesting, this idea that the people who, well, come into our lives and the interactions we have, they aren't just random.
Right.
They might actually hold some, pretty significant lessons for us to learn, help us grow. It's a perspective that's really made me think.
Absolutely. And we'll be drawing on ideas from psychology, coaching, mentorship, that sort of thing. To explore this, we'll share some experiences, maybe some examples to help make these concepts really, well, resonate.
Exactly. Our goal for you, our listener, is that by the end of this, you'll maybe see your everyday interactions in a new light. Recognizing that every relationship, big or small, has the potential to teach you something valuable. So let's dive in, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with this fascinating idea. People who appear just in time. I read this story about someone who missed their train and ended up meeting someone completely unexpected at the station. And this stranger said something like, sometimes life delays you not to punish you, but to help you meet the right person. It really makes you wonder about those, well, seemingly coincidental moments.
It truly does. And from a psychological standpoint, these moments can be more than just, chance. You can think of it as synchronicity, basically, meaningful coincidences that well, they don't seem to have a direct cause.
It's synchronicity.
It's not necessarily about fate per se, but more about paying attention to these alignments. Like, I once mentored someone who was really struggling after a career setback.
Okay.
Then, purely by chance, totally out of the blue, they reconnected with an old contact who offered them a new role that was actually a much better fit. It just felt like a really significant, timely connection,
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing how often those just-in-time moments seem to happen. The text also touches on different ways people interpret this. Some see it as fate, others as an energetic connection, or even like a kind of divine timing. Why do you think we as humans are so drawn to finding meaning in these unexpected encounters?
Well, fundamentally, we're meaning-seeking beings, aren't we? Our brains are kind of wired to look for patterns and connections that helps us understand the world, gives us a sense of purpose. So attributing significance to these moments, whether through a spiritual lens or a belief in fate, it can provide a sort of framework for understanding events that might otherwise just feel random or chaotic.
That makes a lot of sense. And the text also makes a really important point. Not every single interaction is going to be this huge life-altering event, right?
No, not at all.
Sometimes it's something as simple as a stranger offering a kind smile when you're having a tough day, and even that can have a real impact.
Absolutely. Those small positive connections can have a surprisingly powerful ripple effect. I've seen how just a simple act of kindness, like someone offering help when you're visibly struggling with something, can completely turn someone's day around.
Yeah.
It just reminds us of our shared humanity and the importance of even those brief moments of connection.
Okay, let's move on to the next idea, which is that every person is a messenger. The text mentions this quote from Tony Robbins: "Life is always happening for us, not to us."
A classic.
And the idea that follows is that everyone we meet carries some kind of message or lesson for us, even if it's not always what we expect or want to hear.
Yeah, that's a really valuable coaching perspective. Think of it like a garden. A flower needs sunshine and rain, obviously, but it also needs the resistance of the soil, even the wind, to grow strong.
That's a good analogy.
In the same way, the people in our lives, both those who support us and, importantly, those who challenge us, they contribute to our growth in different, but, well, equally important ways.
The text gives some really relatable examples. The rude cashier teaching us patience, a friend who betrays us highlighting our own self-worth, and a supportive mentor helping us to reclaim our power. It really shifts how we might typically view these interactions, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
The key, I think, is to try and shift from that initial reaction of judgment
Yeah, the gut reaction.
to one of curiosity. Instead of just feeling frustrated or hurt, we can ask ourselves, okay, what can I learn from this? What might this person be reflecting back to me about myself or my situation? I remember working with someone who was just constantly frustrated by a colleague's negativity.
Oh, I know the type.
Right. Instead of just focusing on how draining it was, we explored what that frustration was actually revealing about my client's own need for positivity and how they could maybe better protect their own energy. So that challenging colleague inadvertently became a teacher about setting boundaries.
That's a really helpful way to look at it, focusing on the potential lesson rather than just the negative feeling. Okay, now let's talk about this idea of relationships as mirrors. The text uses this psychological metaphor, suggests that our relationships often reflect our own fears, desires, wounds, even our hidden strengths.
Exactly. Think about those times when you instantly dislike someone for seemingly no reason.
Oh, definitely. Happens.
Often that strong negative reaction can actually point to a quality in that person that you haven't yet accepted or fully integrated within yourself. Like someone who is very outspoken might trigger a negative reaction in someone who secretly wishes they were more assertive, but feels, afraid to speak up.
Ah, interesting. And on the flip side, the text mentions feeling an immediate connection with someone, like you've known them forever. That could be a reflection of our own positive qualities then, recognizing our own kindness or sense of humor mirrored back.
Precisely. It's that feeling of resonance, right? We recognize and feel comfortable with qualities in others that we also possess or aspire to. The text suggests paying attention to who makes you feel calm, who triggers frustration, and who you deeply admire. These reactions really can offer profound insights into your own inner world. Maybe this week, our listeners could take a moment after interactions. Just notice what feelings came up and what qualities in the other person might have triggered those feelings.
That's a great exercise in self-awareness. It's about turning the focus inward, to understand ourselves better through our reactions to others. Okay, the next point moves to the unexpected teachers. I love this idea that some of the most valuable lessons come from the most surprising sources. There's a quote here from Brian Tracy. "Every experience in your life is being orchestrated to teach you something you need to know to move forward."
Absolutely. We often think of teachers as, formal educators or mentors.
Right.
But life has this way of delivering lessons through the people we least expect. A child's innocent question can suddenly bring you right back to the present moment.
Yeah.
A really difficult client can teach you resilience, new problem-solving skills. Even someone who causes you significant pain can, eventually in time, lead you on a path of healing and greater self-understanding.
The anecdote about your neighbor Anna really stood out to me. This quiet woman who just offered tea and simply said, "You're not broken, you're blooming." Such simple words, but they carried so much power and comfort. It really highlights how sometimes presence and just genuine care can be more impactful than any elaborate advice.
It truly does. As someone who's mentored many people, I've really learned that sometimes the most valuable thing I can offer is simply being fully present, offering a space for them to be heard and seen. Anna's words were,
Yeah.
a gentle but powerful reminder of inherent worth and the natural process of growth, delivered with just heartfelt presence.
This leads us nicely to the idea of turning awareness into practice and the suggestion of creating a people map. This sounds like a really practical way to consciously identify the lessons we're learning from our everyday interactions.
It's a straightforward but really effective reflection tool.
Yeah.
I'd encourage you, our listener, to give this a try. Take a few moments, think about maybe 5 to 10 people you've interacted with recently. Could be anyone, really.
Okay.
For each person, just jot down one thing that you felt they taught you, or how they challenged you, or simply how they made you feel. You might be surprised to see some recurring themes or patterns emerge that highlight what you're currently learning in your life, your own life curriculum, so to speak.
It's like we're constantly surrounded by potential learning opportunities, and this people map helps us to actively recognize and appreciate them. It really reinforces that key idea from the first part of our discussion, that no encounter is truly random. Every person we connect with contributes to our personal growth in some way. Now, let's shift gears slightly and move into the second part of our deep dive. This looks at the more challenging aspects. When people trigger us, how conflict becomes the classroom for the soul. This raises a really important question. Can the people who frustrate us, even those who hurt us deeply, actually be some of our greatest teachers? It definitely doesn't always feel that way in the moment.
Oh, it certainly doesn't. But often, yes, through navigating those difficult interactions that we experience the most significant personal growth. Our reactions to others, particularly those strong emotional responses we call triggers, they often tell us far more about our own internal landscape than they do about the other person.
Right.
You mentioned the story of Tomas and how his sharp tongue exposed your insecurity. I can definitely relate. I remember feeling incredibly triggered by a colleague who consistently questioned my work.
That's tough.
Yeah, initially I just felt angry, defensive. But upon reflection, really sitting with it, I realized his criticisms were touching on my own underlying doubts about my abilities, something I needed to address within myself.
That brings us directly to the concept that triggers are mirrors. The text describes emotional triggers in psychology as these intense, often disproportionate reactions we have to certain words or behaviors. It's more than just mild annoyance, it's a strong emotional surge.
Exactly. And as the text rightly points out, that trigger isn't really about what the other person is saying or doing in that specific moment. It's reflecting an unhealed wound or an unresolved issue within ourselves. The reflection questions provided are so insightful. What exactly did they say or do that triggered me? Why did it make me feel this specific way, and have I felt this feeling before?
That last one.
Often when you ask that last question, you'll find a connection, a thread back to a past experience where you felt similarly dismissed or hurt or unseen.
So it's like these current interactions are almost reactivating old emotional wounds that haven't fully healed. Like, if you felt unheard or ignored as a child, maybe being interrupted as an adult might trigger a much stronger emotional response than the situation seems to warrant.
Precisely. Those intense emotional reactions, as uncomfortable as they are, actually serve as important signals. They highlight the areas within us that are seeking attention, healing, perhaps a different way of responding. There's a powerful idea, Joe Dispenza talks about this, about how by consciously changing our thoughts and emotional reactions, we can actually shift our reality. Understanding our triggers gives us the power to choose a different response and ultimately heal those underlying wounds.
This idea of the gift inside the challenge is so crucial then. The analogy of climbing a steep hill and becoming stronger with each step really resonates. It reframes those difficult relationships not just as obstacles, but as potential opportunities for building inner strength, even if it, well, doesn't feel like it at the time.
Absolutely. While it's natural to initially ask, why is this happening to me? The more empowering question to consider is, what is life trying to show me or teach me through this challenging interaction? The text provides some really insightful examples. A difficult breakup teaching you about your own self-worth, maybe a friend who disappears unexpectedly teaching you resilience, or a critical boss helping you to find and trust your own voice. These aren't easy lessons for sure, but they often lead to profound personal growth down the line.
Then we come to the often complex topic of forgiveness. The text emphasizes that forgiveness isn't about condoning the other person's actions or saying what they did was okay.
No, definitely not.
It's really about releasing ourselves from the negative emotional burden of that hurt.
Exactly. Forgiveness is truly a gift we give ourselves. It's about consciously choosing to let go of the anger, the resentment, the pain that can keep us stuck in the past. It doesn't mean forgetting what happened, not at all. But it means deciding not to let it continue to negatively impact your present and future. The suggestion of writing an unsent letter to the person who hurt you can be a very helpful exercise just for processing those emotions and then consciously choosing to release them.
That reminds me of the quote, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It really highlights how forgiveness is ultimately about our own well-being.
So true.
The text also mentions another powerful quote, Denzel Washington's. You pray for rain, you gotta deal with the mud too. It connects forgiveness to the sometimes messy, but ultimately necessary process of healing and finding peace.
It does. It's about accepting that difficult experiences are part of life's package deal and choosing to move forward without carrying that heavy weight of resentment. Now let's shift our focus slightly to the energetic dance of relationships. I think we've all experienced how our energy levels and mood can shift depending on who we're interacting with.
Definitely. Some people just seem to drain your energy. You feel exhausted afterwards, while others leave you feeling uplifted and positive. It's almost a palpable feeling.
It's not just about the words being exchanged. There's often an underlying energetic exchange happening in our interactions. And the text points out that while we can't always control the energy that others bring to the table, we absolutely have a choice in the energy we bring to our own interaction.
That's where the power is.
That's where our power lies, in consciously choosing to respond with calmness or kindness, or even choosing to remain silent when faced with negativity. The metaphor of a dance is a good one. We don't have to follow a negative lead. We can choose our own steps.
This leads us to a really practical tool for self-awareness, the trigger journal. This seems like a tangible way to start paying closer attention to our emotional responses and the situations that trigger them.
It is very practical. For 1 week, maybe at the end of each day, just take a few moments for reflection. Ask yourself those 3 key questions. Did anyone trigger me today? What specific emotions did I feel in that moment? And where do I think that feeling might stem from? Yeah, just writing down your answers consistently over the week can really help you identify patterns in your triggers.
Yeah. See the themes.
and gain valuable insights into underlying issues that might need attention and healing. At the end of the week, reviewing your entries can be incredibly eye-opening.
So this second part of our discussion really focuses on understanding those challenging relationships, recognizing our triggers as valuable feedback, and ultimately using those experiences as opportunities for deeper self-awareness and emotional growth. Now, let's move on to the final part of our deep dive, which explores how to create deep, meaningful connections. The power of presence and compassion. This feels like the natural next step, doesn't it? Once we have a better understanding of ourselves and our reactions.
It absolutely is. Once we begin to understand our own inner world a little better, we can then focus on how to connect with others in a more authentic and meaningful way. And right at the heart of that is the power of presence. In our increasingly distracted world, just giving someone our undivided attention, it's truly a valuable gift.
It really is. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you without glancing at their phone or, interrupting to share their own thoughts. It feels so validating, so appreciated. The quote from David Augsburger is so powerful. Being heard is so close to being loved that most people can't tell the difference. Wow. It really highlights the deep connection that genuine presence fosters.
It does. And that leads us straight into the art of deep listening. It's so much more than just waiting politely for your turn to speak.
Guilty of that sometimes.
We all are. It involves actively putting aside your own thoughts, your judgments, that urge to jump in with solutions, and simply being fully present with the other person, trying to truly understand their perspective. It's a skill that takes practice, for sure, but as the story of the nurse Maria illustrates, where her quiet presence and attentive listening provided more comfort than any medical intervention. Sometimes, our simple, focused presence can be the most healing act of all.
That's a beautiful reminder that we don't always need to have the answers or offer advice. Sometimes just being fully present and truly listening is the most compassionate and connecting thing we can do. Okay, the next point focuses on compassion in everyday moments. It emphasizes that compassion isn't necessarily about grand, heroic gestures, right?
No, not usually.
But rather about the small, consistent acts of kindness and understanding we offer in our daily interactions, even when no one else is watching.
Exactly. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and extending kindness in simple, everyday ways, offering help when someone is struggling, sending a thoughtful text, offering a genuine smile, holding the door. We often have absolutely no idea what others are truly going through, and those small acts of compassion can make a surprisingly significant difference in their day. Even just a silent, loving presence can be incredibly healing for someone who is hurting.
This ties in beautifully with the idea of creating space for others to be themselves. It's about accepting people as they are, with all their unique quirks and imperfections, without feeling that constant need to change or fix them.
Yeah, and that involves practicing genuine acceptance, patience, and a willingness to simply hold space for someone, allowing them to be their authentic selves without fear of judgment. Imagine the feeling of being in a relationship, friend, partner, family member, where you feel completely safe to let your guard down and just be who you are. That's the kind of deep connection we can cultivate when we consciously create that non-judgmental space for others.
And that feeling of safety is built upon emotional safety, the invisible foundation of truly deep connection. It's where openness and vulnerability are met with understanding, not with shame or criticism or being ignored.
Precisely. Creating emotional safety involves actively practicing that deep listening we talked about, validating the other person's feelings, even if you don't necessarily agree with their perspective, and responding with warmth and genuine care. When people feel emotionally safe enough to be vulnerable, that's when true and lasting connection can really flourish. And interestingly, people who are secure and grounded in their own emotions are often the ones who can create the safest and most supportive spaces for others.
Which leads to this really empowering perspective, being the healing you wish you had. The idea that we can actively cultivate the qualities and offer the kind of support that we ourselves may have longed for in the past.
It's about consciously embodying those qualities we once needed from others, being a good listener, showing up consistently, truly seeing and acknowledging the people around us. While specific words might sometimes fade from memory, the way we make others feel, that has a lasting and profound impact.
So true. And finally, the last point in this section is about little practices that create big connection. These are the small, intentional daily actions that can significantly deepen our relationships over time. Not huge gestures, just small things.
Yes, these are the essential building blocks of strong, meaningful connections. like taking just a 3-second pause before responding in a conversation. That can prevent reactive responses and create space for more thoughtful communication.
Simple but effective.
Naming what you appreciate in others makes them feel truly seen and valued. Asking deeper, more open-ended questions moves beyond surface-level chit-chat and fosters greater understanding. Being gently honest, even when it's difficult, builds trust over time. And practicing consistent eye contact, it just creates a sense of presence and connection. It's really in these small, intentional moments that true connection thrives.
So, to kind of bring it all together, in this deep dive, we've explored the potential deeper meaning behind our everyday encounters, the valuable lessons we can uncover even in challenging relationships, and the profound power of presence and compassion in fostering truly meaningful connections with others.
Absolutely. Every person we encounter, every single interaction we have, really does offer a potential opportunity for learning, for growth, and for a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. I'd encourage you to approach your relationships with a sense of curiosity and mindful awareness, recognizing the potential for personal evolution in each and every one.
And maybe as you navigate your week, just take a moment to reflect on the kind of presence you want to bring to the lives of the people around you. How can you continue to explore the lessons that might be hidden within your various relationships?
Yeah, consider maybe experimenting with the people map or the trigger journal practices we discussed. They can be really powerful tools for gaining greater self-awareness and understanding the dynamics at play in your interactions.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We truly hope it's provided you with some valuable insights to consider.
It's been a real pleasure. Until our next deep dive together, take good care.